The party took place in the backyard of a quiet suburban home, lit by strings of warm yellow lights hanging between trees and the fence. The scent of baked goods, barbecue meats, and teen pop music blended together, creating the lively atmosphere typical of American family gatherings. Everyone had come to celebrate Allison Alara's cousin, who had just graduated high school and was about to attend Stanford. Alara sat on a plastic folding chair near the buffet table wearing a simple dark brown dress. She wore no makeup and didn't say much. Her gaze was absent-mindedly fixed on the glass of melting iced lemonade in her hand, while the chatter around her grew louder by the minute. "Stanford? Now that's no joke," an uncle said loudly. "Looks like we've got someone in the Ivy League now." "Not everyone can get into such a prestigious school," another chimed in. Then came the voice of Aunt Karen, Allison's mother, sharp and full of implication. "And then there's someone who dropped out of college halfway. But who knows, being a waitress is still an honest job, right?" A few people around chuckled. Glances were cast toward Alara, but she didn't lift her head. Her cheeks burned. Aunt Karen never missed a chance to mention Alara's mysterious departure from college during her sophomore year. To them, not having a degree equaled Philuria ghost in a world that only respected diplomas and titles. Alara remained silent, gently turning her lemonade glass. Her heart pounded, but she couldn't afford to react. Not here. Not at a family party where every word, no matter how small, would be talked about for years. Maybe she just couldn't find herself in school, another aunt added with a tinge of pity. "It's fine though. Some people are just better with their hands than their minds." Alara pressed her lips together. She knew that if she said anything now it would only make things worse. They didn't know. They never asked why she left school. No one asked what she had done in the past 2 years. To them, her silence meant failure. But they didn't know that in that very silence she had written complex lines of code and developed an artificial intelligence model capable of saving lives. Suddenly, the screech of car brakes cut through the party's buzz. A sleek black car pulled up in front of the house. The door opened and a man in a black suit stepped out, holding a folder and an iPad. He entered the backyard, his eyes politely scanning the crowd, clearly searching for someone. "Excuse me," he said, his voice clear and professional, "I'm looking for Dr. Alara Jordan." The party fell silent. A fork clattered onto a plate. All eyes turned to Alara, the very person who had been mocked just moments earlier. She blinked, almost as if she couldn't believe what she'd heard. The man repeated, this time locking eyes with her. "We're here to pick you up. Harvard has arranged for your presence at the research conference in Geneva. This car will take you to the airport." Aunt Karen was speechless. Allison stared at Alara as if seeing her for the first time. And for the first time that evening, Alara stood up. "Yes," she replied, her voice calm but powerful, "I'm Alara Jordan." She walked away, leaving behind a crowd of wide-eyed stares and a silence no one dared to break. Alara Jordan remembered clearly the morning she decided to withdraw from college. It wasn't because of bad grades. It wasn't out of boredom. It was because of a message from the hospital, Mr. Robert Jordan diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, terminal stage. When the news arrived, Alara had been preparing to submit her thesis proposal to a professor in the machine learning department at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. She was only 20 years old, standing at the threshold of a promising future. But in that moment, numbers, algorithms, scholarships, everything became meaningless. Her father, the only family she had left after a car accident 3 years earlier claimed the lives of her mother and younger brother, was her entire world. He didn't complain when illness struck, kept his usual gentle smile, but Alara understood. The chemotherapy sessions, the crushing fatigue, the sleepless, pain-ridden nights, he needed her. She first applied for a temporary leave of absence. But as his condition deteriorated more rapidly than expected, she filed for permanent withdrawal. She didn't explain much. The university didn't ask. They simply sent a confirmation email, no well wishes, no concern. For the next 6 months, Alara virtually vanished from the world. She stopped posting on social media, didn't attend parties, saw no friends. Her relatives only knew that she had dropped out. No one asked further. They were too busy with their own children's achievements, kids studying law, economics, or engineering at top universities. But Alara didn't let time slip by meaninglessly. During the day, she cared for her father. At night, when the house fell silent, she opened her old laptop, logged into free online courses, Coursera, edX, MIT OpenCourseWherein continued learning. An idea sparked when her father's cancer was detected late due to a misread ultrasound image. Alara asked herself, what if I could teach an AI to read medical images more accurately than a doctor? And so the first model was born. In a cold basement, beside her father's force stand, she trained lines of Python, TensorFlow, and Keras code. Each small success she documented meticulously. Every time the model correctly identified a pathology, she envisioned a future where patients like her father could be diagnosed earlier. Her father would often wake in the middle of the night, see the glow of her laptop, and joke, "Are you hacking NASA?" Alara would smile. "No, Dad. I'm building a robot to help doctors stop making mistakes." He would nod. "I've always believed in you. No matter what others say, never doubt yourself, Alara." And that was something she held close to her heart. 3 weeks before her father passed away, she completed the first version of her AI-powered medical imaging diagnostic tool. She wrote a research paper, anonymously, and uploaded it to an open academic forum. The paper bore no name, just E.J., but it included the code, datasets, and a secondary contact email. She didn't expect much. But then an email arrived from a senior professor at MIT. "E.J., I just read your paper. If this is real, you don't just have talent changing the future of medicine." She was stunned. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to hope. When her father died, she didn't cry much. Her tears had already fallen during all the nights he was in pain. But the day after the funeral, Alara replied to that email. Alara's basement had always been a place for strange and wonderful things. As a child, she had turned it into a miniature lab filled with mineral samples, toy motors salvaged from old lawnmowers, and hand-drawn electronic circuit diagrams sketched in pencil on printer paper. But now, that basement had transformed into an unofficial research center. On a long wooden table sat her computer, dual monitors, a Raspberry Pi blinking with green lights, and piles of printed ultrasound data from open-source medical archives. Alara knew she couldn't wait for someone to give her permission. If she wanted to prove her abilities, she had to create her own opportunities. Ever since receiving that first email from Professor Alan Brooks, a leading expert in medical AI at MIT, Alara had been invited to join confidential Zoom discussions with a team of young researchers. At first, they assumed she was a senior undergrad or at least enrolled in a PhD program. But when they learned that Alara was entirely self-taught, had no degree, and had dropped out of college to care for her dying father, they were visibly stunned. Professor Brooks, however, didn't care about diplomas. He cared about results. And what Alara had achieved left him speechless. She had built a convolutional neural network, CNN, model capable of detecting pancreatic cancer from ultrasound images with 93% accuracy, surpassing the reported performance of some commercial algorithms. But what impressed the group most was how she had trained the model. She had hand-labeled a pre-processed dataset of over 4,000 images, filtered out noise using algorithms she had developed herself rather than relying on existing libraries. Every detail reflected deep mathematical insight and original thinking. "Where did you learn all this?" a researcher from Stanford asked. Alara gave a soft smile. "Mostly YouTube. And my dad's old engineering books. He used to teach electronics." Someone on the call chuckled, not mockingly, but with admiration. Professor Brooks sent Alara an informal invitation. "I'd like you to collaborate with my team at Harvard Medical AI. If a formal opportunity arises, would you be open to it?" Alara paused for a moment. It was the first time she had heard the word Harvard and her name in the same sentence. "Yes," she said. "I'm ready." From that day on, her basement became the site of round-the-clock meetings. Alara coded late into the night, submitted progress reports, and built increasingly complex deep learning models with the help of several GPUs Professor Brooks had shipped to her. Her identity was kept confidential for legal reasons, until all documentation was finalized. But within the team, they had a nickname for her, the Basement Prodigy. She didn't tell her relatives. No one at the graduation party knew that while they mocked her silence, Alara was working with one of the world's leading medical research teams. A week before that party, Alara received an email with the subject line, "Harvard Research Fellowship Appointment Letter for Dr. Alara Jordan." She thought it was a typo. But upon opening it, everything was clear. She had been appointed Assistant Research Fellow, tasked with presenting her AI model for early detection of rare diseases at the annual scientific conference in Geneva. They called her Dr. Jordan because her accomplishments matched those of top-tier PhD and exceptional designation, rarely granted in Harvard's history. Elara cried quietly, not because of the title, not because of the recognition, but because she wished her father could have witnessed that moment. At the bottom of the letter was a final line. A private car will arrive to pick you up at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of the family gathering at the address provided. Please be ready. And Elara was ready. 7:30 p.m. the night of the graduation party. The sleek black car slowly pulled up in front of the small suburban house just outside Boston, its headlights casting reflections through the thick tree branches lining the gravel path. It was a luxurious Mercedes with a government license plate, enough to make the relatives gathered around the cake table pause their conversation and turn to look. From the car stepped a man in his 30s, dressed in a tailored black suit, wearing an ID badge with Harvard's pale red logo. In his hand he held a folder and an iPad. He walked calmly into the party area as though he had been invited. The lively chatter faltered. Conversations were left hanging mid-sentence. Aunt Karen, still in the middle of her story about the dropout girl, blinked repeatedly, as if she couldn't comprehend what was happening. The kids who had been eating cake stopped chewing, staring wide-eyed at the unfamiliar man. "Excuse me," the man said, his voice clear and polite yet commanding. "I'm here to pick up Dr. Elara Jordan. Is she present?" The atmosphere froze. "Doctor who?" someone whispered. That name Elara Jordan had been mentioned all evening with scorn and mockery. But now it was being spoken by a representative from Harvard? Elara, sitting quietly at the corner table, stood up slowly. She wasn't surprised. She had known this day would come. But she hadn't expected it to arrive in the middle of the party, right in the midst of their ridicule. She stepped forward. All eyes followed her, some wide with disbelief. The man immediately nodded upon seeing her. "Hello, Ms. Jordan. I'm Michael Trent, Senior Research Assistant from Harvard Medical AI. I'm here on behalf of the Scientific Council to escort you. We need to be at the airport before 9 p.m. for your flight to Geneva tonight." Aunt Karen's mouth hung slightly open. Allison's mother clutched her chest as if in mild shock. Allison stared at Elara's cousin she had always seen as a failure with stunned eyes. Elara gave a small smile and nodded to Michael. "I know. Thank you for arriving on time." Michael handed her the folder. "Inside you'll find the detailed itinerary, your honorary conference badge, and the official invitation letter. Harvard is honored to have you as part of this year's research team." The entire crowd surrounding Elara had gone utterly silent. Those who once laughed at her, pitied her, judged her now stood frozen, their faces a mix of confusion, embarrassment, and admiration. Elara turned and looked at each face. No anger. No explanations needed. In that moment everything was clear. "She's a doctor?" someone whispered. Michael glanced over, slightly amused. "Oh, she doesn't hold a traditional PhD, but her work and contributions are on par with doctorate-level research. She's a rare phenomenon. Nature magazine will be interviewing her tomorrow." Elara bowed her head politely to the group of relatives. "Thank you all for inviting me to the party. I'll be leaving now, Harvard is waiting." She followed Michael to the car. Just before the door closed, she looked back one last time, the string lights in the backyard still twinkling, but the smile on her face had changed, serene, proud, and completely free. The car drove off, leaving behind a party where no one had the appetite to continue. The story of the dropout girl had just become a family legend. On the plane Boston to Geneva, Elara sat by the window in the business-class cabin, watching the city lights below slowly fade into the distance as the plane ascended into the night sky. It was her first time traveling abroad. And yet, strangely, excitement wasn't the dominant feeling within her, it was calm. A deep, healing calm. She closed the folder, the detailed conference itinerary Michael had handed her at the party, and leaned back, shutting her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, memories returned like a slow-motion film. She saw her father again, lying on the basement couch, smiling faintly through the pain so she wouldn't worry. She heard the soft clicks of keyboard keys late at night, the only sound in a quiet, empty house. She remembered the time she almost gave up, when her model failed, her laptop overheated, data got lost, or when she had to choose between continuing her studies or placing her hand on her father's chest to check his breathing. No one knew. No one ever asked. And perhaps that was what made the wounds cut the deepest, the silence from those who should have cared. When she disappeared from college, there wasn't a single call to ask, "Are you okay?" There were only rumors, pitying glances, and whispered judgments behind her back. So when the man from Harvard walked into that party and called her Dr. Jordan, it wasn't just a validation of her talent. It was healing. No apologies needed. No explanations. Just one moment where the truth spoke for itself. Ilara unlocked her phone. Not to post online, she still wasn't ready to share any of this with the world. But to make a call. To her mother, who now lived in a care facility in Oregon after a mild stroke, her memory sometimes sharp, sometimes fading. The phone rang a few times, then a frail voice answered. "Hello. Mom, it's Ilara. Oh my girl. It's so late, are you still awake?" Ilara swallowed the lump in her throat. She didn't call often. Their relationship had been distant for years, ever since her mother left the family under the pressure of illness and debt. But tonight Ilara felt the need. "Mom, I'm heading to Geneva. Harvard invited me to present my research at an international conference. They called me doctor." There was a pause. "Harvard." Her mother's voice sounded as if she couldn't believe it. "You got into Harvard?" "No, I never went back to college. But they recognized my work. They said it could save lives." Another silence. Then her mother's voice trembled softly. "I'm sorry. For not being there. I truly am." Ilara took a deep breath. Her eyes stung, but she smiled faintly. "It's okay, Mom. I'm all right. And I forgive you." In the dim light of the airplane cabin, Ilara felt something loosen inside her. A knot she thought would never unravel now melted away in quiet forgiveness. No grand speeches. No winners or losers. Just truth, forgiveness, and the will to move forward. She looked out the window, the night still deep, but a hint of light was beginning to glow on the horizon. Geneva was waiting. And for the first time in a very long while, Ilara felt truly alive, not the silent figure in someone else's story, but the one rewriting it, chapter by chapter, with her own hands. Geneva, Switzerland, CCG International Conference Center. The taxi pulled up in front of the CCG Conference Center at 8:12 a.m. Ilara stepped out, a crisp cream blazer draped neatly over her light blue slacks. Around her neck hung a badge that read, Dr. Ilara Jordan, Harvard Medical AI Research Fellow. She paused for a moment on the steps, took a deep breath, and glanced around the plaza where flags from dozens of nations fluttered in the morning breeze. Under the soft Geneva sunlight, it all felt like a dream. But her steady footsteps were not a dream. They carried truth, a history of hardship, and a present that could no longer be denied. The auditorium where she was scheduled to speak was vast, 3 tiers of seating, a flawless sound system, and a massive LED screen behind the stage. Scientists from over 40 countries had gathered not only to present their research, but to listen to a 22-year-old with no formal degree, no academic title. Yet with an AI model that had captured the attention of the global medical community, Ilara stood backstage, checking her slides one last time. She wasn't nervous. The night before, she had rehearsed with Professor Brooks over Zoom. He had said only one thing. Just be yourself. The knowledge is yours. The story is yours. They'll feel it. Then the introduction came through the microphone. Please welcome our special guest speaker, the developer of a groundbreaking machine learning model for early pancreatic cancer detection, with unprecedented accuracy, representing Harvard Medical AI Dr. Ilara Jordan. Applause rose, not loud, but firm and full of respect. Ilara stepped onto the stage. Under the spotlights, everything around her seemed to slow down. But as her eyes swept over the auditorium filled with both skeptics and supporters, she no longer felt small. She began to speak clearly, steadily. I didn't start this project in a state-of-the-art lab. I started it in my basement. No grants. No degrees. No plaques on the wall. But I had a reason, my father. Her presentation delved into the architecture of her enhanced CNN model, the manual noise reduction techniques, the refinement of open-source datasets, and the integration of ultrasound imaging with textual medical records. She described how layered models improved sensitivity and how the AI learned to detect subtle human oversights. Her final slide appeared an ultrasound image flagged by her model as high risk, previously overlooked by 2 doctors. Ilara ended with one simple sentence. If this model had been used sooner, Maybe my father would still be alive. A silence fell over the room. No one clapped at first. But then one by one they stood. The entire auditorium, home to some of the world's foremost researchers, rose to their feet and gave her the longest standing ovation in the conference's history. Alara bowed her head. No tears. Only peace. She had stepped onto the stage, not just of a conference but of her own life.